Welcome to 2026 and an art planning video. Grab your own planners, sketchbooks or journals, maybe a cup of tea or coffee, and join me as we'll be going over 6 different themes to match 2026. This is a collab with the wonderful Annabelle, as has become our tradition at the end or start of a year. Go check out her plans for her own painting practice too for a very different perspective and even more inspiration. I'm treating these 6 themes as planning prompts, and I'd be curious to hear about your plans as well. The first one is something to continue. This one is simple. What have we been doing, enjoy doing, and want to continue? For me, it's book illustration. I've slowly made this transition from mostly character art commissions to now creating cover illustrations, end papers and interior pages, and it's my favorite type of illustration work. I love reading a book or at the very least scene excerpts, see what the author has created and then play with that as art becomes a conversation. But it goes beyond just work, and I'm of course itching to paint more book-inspired art in general. The second half of 2025 was quite busy, and there are so many ideas that are waiting for a spot on my small table easel. I'm sketching a character design for my third Silmarillion-inspired painting, which has been waiting at the edges of my art practice for the longest time now. Despite shooting some pose references and draping textiles already, I haven't made a proper character design for Luthien, so I'll just be scribbling away at some ideas while making my art plans with you. I actually want to continue a lot of the projects and themes I've stumbled upon in 2025. I discovered the fun of making art scenes, of themed sketches, gouache. I've gone way more in depth with travel sketches and landscapes. I learned more about portraits. So I'm sure all of that will keep going as well. I just want to choose book illustration as a clear priority to give my art plans in 2026 a direction. The prompt, something to continue for this part of our art plans, doesn't mean we don't want to improve, of course. For you, this could be an art medium you can't put away, or a sketchbook habit you've picked up and want to pursue further. Or a painting style that truly feels yours. In our art plans that we're making, this is the foundation, the place where most of our creative energy probably will be used. Watercolors are great for character designs, as I can keep everything loose, transparent, and layer my decisions. And here I'm combining that with some very scribbly colored pencil sketches underneath. My second planning prompt is something different. This is the opposite to the previous one. Something different and something new. This doesn't have to be a big thing. I'd actually encourage you to think about it as a one-time or just an occasional thing to experiment with. But maybe you're in the mood for a big change and want to go all out here. At first I thought that for me this would be painting something large, but then I remembered that I've been wanting to attend a live drawing class since forever. I still haven't found one on the island, but haven't given up yet. Maybe I'll find something if I fly up to Seoul later this year. Worst case, I'll just have to get some friends together for a portrait sketching session where we model for each other. I just want to work from a real human reference at least once. Not all of these plans that we're making need to consume us, or we'll just burn out, so I'm trying to set a clear focus, but leave room for fun and experimentation. Something old. My favorite prompt of these 6. Think back to your childhood. Did you have a favorite story? Did you invent characters and worlds? Do you have an old, nearly forgotten game or movie packed with fond memories? Did you write or craft in the past and abandoned that over the years? And how could that come back in the new year? I actually used to write and draw comics, manga, webtoons, and even have multiple scripts and drafts still lying around that I'd love to turn into an illustrated story one day. For now, for 2026, my something old plan is to dig up these old story ideas, world-building notes, maybe find ancient sketches of characters, and give myself a lazy morning or two of sketching them. Maybe there'll even be a fun fantasy illustration idea that comes out of this. It doesn't matter how far into the past you go for this, but I think it would be interesting to go with at least a decade or more, or even go full-on childhood nostalgia. We sometimes end up taking our art, even casual sketches, very seriously. And I hope that this little planning prompt leaves some room for very self-indulgent art about things I'd nearly forgotten. Do you have any old ideas that you'd abandoned or maybe even forgotten about? How could you bring those back to your art practice in 2026 and see how it fits into your current art practice? The first sketch on the second page is actually a character from a really old story idea. I'd always imagined it as a comic or graphic novel, but wrote my drafts in novel form over the years. I still really love the world building. Magic and willpower can be distilled or crystallized, so the main characters all have crafts they specialize in, working with those elements, creating charms and trinkets. And certain locations have more naturally accumulated magic distorting the environment as well. I think with everything I've learned about painting and drawing over the years, I'd like to dive back into all those possibilities to bring them to life. If you want to keep it simple, something old could also be an art medium you haven't used in years. Or maybe you can find an old unfinished sketchbook that you'd kind of ignored or forgotten about and want to finish in this new year. With how fast we often have to jump from project to project, from idea to idea, there's so much that gets lost along the way, and I hope that this prompt can help look back into the past and find maybe some forgotten treasures. The fourth prompt is something personal. Annabelle and I talked about this theme and decided it could mean both something personal, as in not intended for the world to see because it's casual and maybe silly, and personal as in focused on deeper self-reflection. Working full-time as an artist and also making these videos, a lot of my art is for someone, and here I want to leave room for art that doesn't have to convey anything, that doesn't have to look good, it doesn't even have to teach me anything. The peaceful kind of sketches that I draw while lying on the floor on our heated mat, or in bed with my cat, or while on long phone calls. For me, this will probably be doodles of characters, kind of reflective of the previous theme, or sketches done during D&D games as well. Very casual, but you could go with personal also as a theme for exploring yourself, your direction and choices, your history and culture, and how to bring those into your art. Maybe this is a good moment to reflect on how your personal experiences and how your past also reflect in your current art. I'm just not feeling very introspective at the moment, and so I'm heading in an unserious direction with cute little doodles and sketches that probably no one will ever see. Here I'm sketching a D&D character of mine using a pencil from the Inktense line by Derwent. I actually filmed an art haul a while back, I just haven't gotten around to editing it yet. So a lot of these pencils and different tools that I'm trying out will show up in that in just a couple weeks. The fifth planning prompt for 2026 is something to improve. I want to pick something concrete, but strangely, it's not an art skill. It's a balance skill. There were times during 2025 when I really overdid it with work, juggling commercial illustration projects, local art events in Korea, making and shipping art prints and scenes, trying to also sketch and practice and make videos. So in 2026 I really need to get a better grip on balance. And no matter how much I move things around to try and achieve that, I do actually need to cut back on some parts instead of stubbornly trying to do it all. I think sadly art events are one thing that I want to reduce. Looking back, I'd probably be better off having a few days more each month to truly focus on painting. Especially in spring and fall, art events can take up anything between 1 and 3 days a week, and it's a constant flurry of driving and packaging and selling, and I feel like it kind of disconnects me from what I really want to do. So I want to reduce these to 0, but I want to be careful not to overextend myself. I might also be posting fewer videos at least until later in spring, as I'm already booked with book illustration commissions, and that's the priority. In 2025, I always had way more footage than I could ever turn into videos, despite filming mostly just on my days off. So I wanted to have a clearer plan on what and when to film, and reduce my editing times way down with that approach. On that note, let me know what kind of videos you find the most interesting. I honestly love making them all, and also have a perfectionist streak, so I want to do everything and could use the guidance. On that note, let me know what kind of videos you find the most interesting. I enjoy making them all, from these casual sketching videos to new art material experiments, full-on painting processes, and the more casual art vlogs. Of course, there are other things I want to improve, more closely related to art itself, but I know myself. I like studies, I like learning and practicing, so this will hopefully just happen naturally as I try out art classes, follow tutorials, paint and sketch, and I'd rather make sure that my practice is sustainable. By the way, I already took a look at that something old art prompt from earlier and sketched one of my oldest original characters here. I really like these watercolor pencils for sketching. I can add hints of color washes without the lines disappearing, so these sketches were incredibly quick to make. Now, what's the final planning prompt for 2026? Something for the distant future. While we are looking ahead into this new year, this planning prompt goes a bit beyond that. I'm not trying to create a 5-year plan or anything, but let's just take a moment and see if we have any long-term, distant, maybe lofty goals. And if all our other smaller plans seem to be leading at least a little bit towards that. Because if that distant goal didn't in some way show up in any of the 5 previous plans, that's probably not a great sign. So, where do you see yourself going? What creative goals do you have? No matter if you are working as an illustrator professionally or pursue art in your own time, I think it's important to occasionally take a look into the future. Like many fantasy artists, I'm sure, I dream of one day illustrating a Magic the Gathering card or maybe characters for Paizo, or creating art for specific book publishers. That's not something I can control beyond doing my best, and it really feels like a very far away possibility. So instead, I'd love to work on a project that requires me to create a cohesive body of work over multiple illustrations. Something like a book cover, but then also end papers, maybe some interior illustrations, all flowing together harmoniously. That could even be my own project, kind of similar to the Dracula art scene, though I'd probably want to wait until I can ship to the EU or US again if I attempt that. Or it could be a project for a client. I just really enjoy serial art and want to make sure that my art style and color palettes become more cohesive overall. I'd also mentioned ideas for illustrated stories, like a graphic novel of my own, but again, don't quite feel ready for that yet. I want my illustration style to be more consistent and confident before tackling a project that would take up such a big chunk of time and dedication. But still, that's something to keep in mind for the future. And I think focusing on book illustration and drawing a lot of character art would probably put me on the right path for that. I was thinking back to a couple exhibits I'd been part of over the last few years, and I think I'm actually not really focused on that side of art. I enjoy exhibits. It's of course an honor when I get to be a part of one, and it's so much fun to create original art for that, but I'm just more of an illustrator than a painter, if that distinction makes sense. So I think it's fitting that I started the year with this sketchbook session, finally taking steps to really finalize the design of Luthien. I have the paper prepared, all my other references are ready to go, and if I want to reach those lofty, long-term goals of maybe working with some of those really famous properties in the illustration world, I think in the end, working on my portfolio and my illustration skills is really all that I can do. Here I'm going back into those very rough sketches, seeing where color could come in, where interesting clothing details could happen. I ended up with 3 different designs for Luthien's costume here. One flowing and taking up space, one with elegant lines like a beam of light, and then one top-heavy and quite dramatic. I really enjoyed all these water-soluble pencils for sketching, layered on top of even softer watercolor washes and the initial rough-colored pencil lines. It gave me multiple rounds of exploration per sketch, to pull and push focus as I went along. At the very end, you'll see me add geometric shapes next to each sketch to represent what they do as a composition element. The first costume, a rectangle, taking up all that space with its flowing, heavy textiles. The second one, bottom heavy, with a flared skirt and hanging cloth, looking peaceful and serene. And then the last one, an inverted triangle, with all the detailing and heavy-looking elements at the top. It's the one I'm most drawn to, but I'm curious if you have a favorite as well. So 6 planning ideas for 2026. I hope some of these sparked your own imagination or gave you inspiration for a project or two to dive into. Personally, I kept mine simple and focused on overall goals, with room for experiments along the way. And Annabelle is sharing her own answers to these planning prompts over on her own art channel. With our 2 videos, you'll get 2 very different perspectives, and hopefully you can see yourself reflected in there somewhere. What are your plans for art in 2026? Anything old you want to bring back? Anything new you're excited about? Or anything personal you'd like to express? I'm excited for the new year, for all these interesting projects I'm getting to work on, and hopefully having time for my own personal pieces as well. Thank you so much for watching. Happy New Year, and I hope to see you again in my next art video.